front of the video.
Are we going now?
So we're good?
Right, okay. Good afternoon everybody. My name's Simon, this is my good friend Sean. We're on holiday, but obviously as a compulsive gambler I'm very much aware that just because you come on holiday the thoughts of gambling or the need for recovery doesn't stop. So because I've not kind of got a meeting this week, me and Sean have sort of spent many an evening or an afternoon just talking about sort of gambling and addiction and different things. So yesterday we were talking about a few things that I was really quite interested in with Sean, and I said let's do a little video, let's put it on the group and just see how it goes down, and maybe it can help some other people. So in the particular group we go to, we have a WhatsApp group, as I was telling you. We've got people on there who've done several years. We've got people who've come and attended a week and have joined. We've got people on there who've come to the group, gone away from the group, are probably back in the throes of gambling, a lot of people as they tell us, and have still kept the WhatsApp group because they found it's been helpful. And a few people have sort of reached out and said, I've now had enough, I'm coming back. And you know, it can be quite a jokey place to be on the WhatsApp group and a bit of fun and a laugh, but as a unity within a group it turns quite into sort of something quite serious and important when people need it to be.
Yeah.
So let's just explore a little bit of the things we've done, and we'll try and keep it to around 10 minutes if that's okay with you.
Yeah, great stuff.
So
go on then, what would you want to start?
Well, addiction.
Okay. Okay.
Let's go at the right from the beginning really of sort of, you know, what sort of makes that being an addict. What do people sort of you know, are we different to anybody else? What does that? Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, powerful question. Thinking about what you were just explaining then about your WhatsApp group, and you were saying that sometimes there's a bit of jokey and a bit of laugh, and then sometimes serious, and people that maybe go away from addiction recovery, as in stop going to GA, and they stay on the group, and that can draw them back. And I think that is a strong example of how normal the people are. Sometimes we just see the addiction and nothing but the addiction. But the truth is that people that are going through any kind of recovery, whether it's an addiction recovery, a health recovery, a mental health recovery, or whatever, and including people just in normal everyday life, the thing that's important to us is connection, friendship, having a laugh, occasionally being serious, occasionally meeting up, and so to make sure that in addiction recovery that the person isn't just constantly focusing on the addiction. I think that's really, really important. It's important because the truth is that addiction, now forgive the terminology, okay, so don't take me too literally in some of what I say.
I'll give you a couple of minutes to rectify or redeem yourself. Go on.
Go on then. Addiction is actually a normal process. And what I mean by that is like addiction is just a part of a journey. So I shared at your GA group once about how addiction is a normal process, like sex, for example, is an addiction. But if it was, and it's something that's biologically natural within us, because I'm supposed to be addicted to my partner. But when we misuse it, I become addicted to the act, and that then leads to some destructive behaviours. So we could talk about food. I'm supposed to have a constant desire to food.
I think I've got food addiction as well.
But that is a real issue. Yeah. That it is something that our body naturally desires, but when we misuse it or abuse it, it becomes damaging to us. And there are lots of things that are like that in normal life. But when you break that down into a simple process, and we use the car as an analogy, when you drive your car, you don't think about most of what you're doing. It's happening autonomously. Your driving behaviour when you were starting to drive was conscious behaviour, but then it becomes subconscious behaviour as you just do it naturally because you've done it for so long. But then that can become an extreme. So you've got people who have extreme sports, you know, racing drivers, and they just drive all the time, and it's something that's gone beyond more than just a behaviour that's become a habitual behaviour. It's something that they do a lot of. And I know this might sound a little tongue-in-cheek and a little bit cheap, but it isn't. I think that the thing I'm trying to highlight here is that we too often as addicts feel like we are not normal and everybody else around us is normal. And that's not the case. I'll give you another example. How long were you gambling, and I'm talking about gambling to destruction, I'm talking about problem gambling,
right,
before anybody actually knew about it?
A long time. They only kind of found out about it when I'd run out of options to obtain money to do that.
Yeah, and so the problem that you've got is that if you had any of your friends at that time that were addicts with that gambling issue, they would probably look at you and think, I wish I was like Simon, because Simon looks like he's got it all sorted. But what they don't know is that behind the scenes, there is this problem that's causing destruction, that's leading you into a really, really damaging place. So if you put addiction on a seesaw, addiction is not the whole seesaw. Addiction is the central point, it's the tipping point.
Right.
And what happens is, in addiction recovery, we're not actually dealing with addiction.
What, so you're saying it's sort of like the GA meetings, we're not actually dealing with addiction?
You're not dealing with addiction, you're not dealing with gambling.
What we're dealing with then?
Okay, so if you imagine that you are in behavioural mode.
Right.
So the seesaw is led this way,
right,
okay? And over here we've got a behaviour. And what I mean by that is that there are millions and millions of people that will just put a bet on the national every year. And it's a behaviour. It's not even become a habit. It's just behaviour. There'll be people that when they're in a bar and they're having a drink, they might put £1 in a fruit machine, but then never touch one for 6 months. And so it's a behaviour. But then, as you and I both know, from 25 years ago, we used to, in the pub, we used to do that a lot. It becomes more than a behaviour, it becomes habit, where every time you go out, you've got to just stick a couple in, and then it becomes a couple more, and it increases. And so there's a journey up this point, and then it becomes addiction, okay? Now you can balance addiction, and what I mean by that is people can be addicted and manage it. Take alcoholism, for example. There's plenty of people that are alcoholics, but they still manage to get up in the morning and go to work every day.
Right.
But they're still addicts. They still can't deal without the drink, but they're functioning, and so they balance it. The problem that we've got is they don't come to recovery until they can't manage it anymore, and it tips.
Right, to the other side from the behaviour.
Yeah.
Right.
So now, behaviour becomes habit, becomes addiction, now becomes destruction.
Right.
So when it starts to bring destruction into the life, they're still trying to manage it, but then the destruction gets bigger and bigger and bigger and more costly. And what happens is people come to addiction recovery when the cost has got too much.
Okay.
So what you're actually dealing with when people first arrive is you're dealing with destruction. It's a bit like the person that's struggling with depression and they get put on antidepressant tablets.
Yeah.
The antidepressant tablets aren't dealing with whatever caused the problem, they're just trying to bring some form of balance back so then that person can start to try and find out what the root cause was. So if the problem that we've got in services a lot, so my background is dealing with alcohol particularly and drug addicts and that's been the main focus. And in those services, what I've discovered that was very frustrating is almost everybody wants to deal with the addiction. If we can just get the alcoholic to stop drinking, or if we can just get the drug addict to stop taking drugs, or if we can just get the compulsive gambler to stop betting on whatever it is that they bet on. And that's not the problem, because there's a guy called Gabor Mate, and he's a brilliant guy to listen to, and I would encourage anybody to search him out on the internet. He's worked for, 20 or 30 odd years in addiction. And he says that at the root to almost all addiction is pain. There is some form of fragmented emotional pain or damage that we might not even be aware of. It could have come from things that happened when we were very young that we don't even remember anymore. We've no idea the impact of mum and dad separating, or the impact of a loss of a loved one when we were a child, or the impact of just mum being 15 minutes late picking us up from the primary school at one time. And that is a specific case actually. I mean, there's even studies to show that these things have got evidence that they create an emotional it's just a little bit of a chink in the love tank of the person that is enough to cause them to have some sort of pain, even though they might not be aware of it. And if we can find a way to repair the pain, we don't necessarily have to find out what it is. We've just got to find a way to help people manage pain, so that the behaviour that leads to addiction doesn't become a substitute for the for the pain,
Yeah.
and that's what we're going to deal with. So when we focus on addiction, we're focusing on what is actually the least important thing in that journey.
Okay.
The most important thing is to bring stabilization back to the person's life.
Right.
So try and bring some kind of order back to the chaos that is the destruction. Once we've brought order back to the chaos, we can then start to help them to identify what are the potential routes that could possibly cause me to use my addiction as an alternative to dealing with life.
I suppose the actual ideal, I mean, we're all very much aware, a lot of people who've got in the group, and myself in particular, and I should always talk about myself when talking at groups rather than other people, is the fact that I would see from what you're saying there, and yes, I'm several years of without a better, which is fantastic, and I'm very much aware of what's gone is gone, and it's tomorrow. That's the most important thing. But the best I can hope for is my seesaw, as you put it, is at the medium balance, and that's where I've got to keep it.
Yeah.
Because I can't gamble. I can't go to the initial stage of it's just a behavioural thing.
Yeah.
I also don't want to go on the destruction and tip that seesaw the other way. So the best and what I hope I can manage or continue to manage a compulsive gambler is to keep that seesaw at that level point.
And that is why an addict is just as normal as somebody who would claim to not have addiction. Because that is just balancing life.
Yeah.
We've been sold a lie in our Western culture. And that lie is that life is going to be an uphill struggle. A few dips, but it's an uphill struggle until you get your break. And your break is that you either win the lottery or you win the X Factor, or a long lost relative that was a billionaire dies and leaves you all the money, or whatever that break is. And then after that, life will be hunky-dory. And that's the lie that we've been sold. No, it's not completely a lie, because we do live in very much a land of opportunity. But what we've got to make sure is that we don't see the vision of the opportunity at the cost of what real life is all about. And life is a balancing act. And whether we like it or not, good things happen to good and bad people. We all suffer stuff in life, and sometimes the stuff that we suffer, and that's all subjective. The things that we suffer can quite often cause pain that then we can't deal with. And everybody is balancing life in that same way. And the person that has met destruction due to addiction is no different than the person that has not yet met destruction.
Okay, I'm just conscious we're not boring everybody to death and things like that, and hopefully some people have got something out of that. It's certainly given me something to think about. So literally, sum up for me, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and then you can all have your lives back.
Okay, sum up in 20 or 30 seconds.
That section of what we've done, if you want.
Yeah, I mean, is it alright if I put this into a little bit of advice?
Go for it.
Statement? I'm wary about giving advice, but my advice will be, don't see yourself as being anything other than just the same as anybody else. The addiction is not an abnormal place to be in. Not seeking help, not doing something about it, that's the abnormal place to be in. And where you are in the point where destruction has brought you to a point of seeking help, you're in the healthiest place you've ever been in your entire life. Because now you're in an opportunity where people are positively wanting to help and support. And for most of us in normal life, we don't have that. We have friends. I mean, you and I have been friends for a long time.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, that friendship has been more true when one of us has been struggling. I've had a couple of periods of, unfortunately, homelessness, and you've been a rock for me in that time. The truth is that before that happened, I had lots of people around me, but when the proverbial poo hit the fan, the people that were around me were a very, very small number of people. And now you've got an opportunity to be around people who consciously want to be support for you, want to be help for you. And that's a great place to be. Maximise on it, plug in, build a community, have lots of friends around you, openness and honesty every step of the way. You're not abnormal just because you've got or had an addiction problem. You're not abnormal at all.
So basically, get team meeting tonight or this week and help stabilise that seesaw. Thank you very much.